When little Emma ran into the house, her laughter echoing through the narrow hallways, Mark couldn't help but smile. The sound of her giggles had become the soundtrack of his life, an unexpected melody that filled the silence he'd once thought he was destined to live in. She was 6, missing one front tooth, and carried a stuffed bunny so worn it looked like it had survived a war. "Daddy, look," she cried, holding up a drawing. "It's us. You and me at the park." Mark crouched down, wiping the grease off his hands from fixing the kitchen cabinet. He took the paper, studying the uneven stick figures and the bright yellow sun in the corner. One tall figure with brown hair and a smile. One smaller one with pigtails and a bunny. Above it, in bold crayon letters, "Me and Daddy." For a second, he couldn't breathe. The word daddy hit him harder than any punch ever could. Because he wasn't her real dad. But he wished he was. 2 years ago, he hadn't even known Emma existed. Back then, he was just a mechanic trying to rebuild his life after a messy divorce. Then Sarah walked into his shop, her car smoking, her patience gone, and her eyes tired. She was beautiful, but not the kind of beauty that screamed for attention. Hers was quiet, hidden behind the weariness of someone who'd carried too much for too long. "I'm sorry," she had said, her voice trembling as she tried to calm Emma in the back seat. "She gets scared when the car breaks down." He had smiled, crouched down beside the little girl's window, and made a silly face until she giggled. It was the first time he'd seen Sarah relax, even just a little. He fixed her car that day, but somehow, he never fixed the space she left behind. They started talking, small conversations that turned into late-night phone calls. She told him about her ex-husband, about how he'd disappeared when Emma was just a baby, leaving her with nothing but unpaid bills and broken promises. She didn't want pity, she just wanted peace. And Mark, he wanted a reason to care again. Before long, they were spending weekends together, Emma perched on his shoulders at the park, Sarah sitting on the bench smiling, her coffee cooling as she watched the two people she loved most in the world. He'd never asked for that life, but somehow, it became the one he wanted most. Still, there were moments when reality reminded him he wasn't truly part of her bloodline. Like the time Emma's class had family tree day. She'd come home crying, clutching her paper. "Everyone drew their mommy and daddy," she sniffled. "But my teacher said I need to write my real daddy's name." "I don't know his name, Mommy." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but Mark knelt beside her. "Hey," he said gently. "You can write my name if you want. I may not be your real dad, but I'm your dad. That's real enough for me." She looked at him for a long moment, then smiled and wrapped her tiny arms around his neck. "Okay, Daddy." From that day on, she called him that. Every single day. But life, as it often does, found ways to test the things we love most. One summer evening, Sarah fell ill. It started as dizziness, then fatigue, then tests, endless tests. The diagnosis came like a thunderclap, late-stage lymphoma. Mark felt the ground vanish beneath him. She tried to stay strong for Emma, hiding her pain behind forced smiles, but Mark saw through it. Every night after Emma fell asleep, he'd hold Sarah's trembling hands as she cried silently. "I'm scared," she'd whisper. "Not of dying, but of leaving her. She's so little, Mark. She needs someone who loves her like I do." He pressed his forehead against hers. "She'll have that. I promise you." Sarah smiled weakly, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You already gave her more love than her real father ever did." 3 months later, she was gone. The funeral was quiet. Emma didn't understand. She sat on Mark's lap, clutching her bunny, staring at the closed casket. "Mommy's sleeping, right?" she asked softly. Mark's throat burned. "Yeah, sweetheart. Mommy's resting now." He wanted to tell her the truth, but how do you explain death to a child who still believed in fairies and bedtime monsters? After that day, it was just the two of them. For weeks, the house felt hollow. Emma stopped laughing. She stopped drawing. At night, he'd hear her whispering to her bunny, "When's Mommy coming back?" Mark didn't have the heart to tell her she wouldn't. So, instead, he stayed. He made pancakes in the morning even when she didn't eat them. He brushed her hair, badly, but tried anyway. He sang lullabies he didn't know the words to. He learned how to braid hair, how to sew a button on her school uniform, how to pack a lunchbox with the right snacks. Slowly, she began to smile again. But just when he thought they were finding their rhythm, her biological father came back. Out of nowhere. One afternoon, a man in a leather jacket showed up at the house, his tone cocky, his eyes distant. "I'm here for my daughter," he said flatly. Mark froze. "Your daughter? You mean the one you abandoned for 6 years?" The man sneered. "I'm still her father. I've got rights." That night, Mark barely slept. He could hear Emma's soft breathing from the next room, the faint glow of her nightlight spilling under the door. The thought of losing her was unbearable. He'd raised her, held her through nightmares, watched her grow from a broken little girl into someone who could smile again. She wasn't his by blood, but she was his in every way that mattered. The court battle was brutal. Mark's hands shook when the judge asked if he was Emma's biological father. "No, sir," he said, his voice breaking. "But I'm the man who's been there for her every day. I'm the one she calls Dad." The biological father's lawyer smirked. "That doesn't make you family." But when Emma was asked to speak, everything changed. She stood on the witness chair, her bunny in her lap, her feet dangling above the floor. "He's my daddy," she said softly. "He makes me pancakes. He reads me stories. He sings to me when I'm scared. My other daddy didn't want me. But he did." There was silence. The judge removed his glasses, blinking hard. After what felt like hours, he ruled in Mark's favor. Full custody. Mark broke down right there in the courtroom. Emma ran to him, and he lifted her up, holding her as if the world could never take her away again. That night, they sat together on the couch. She rested her head on his shoulder, watching the flickering light of the TV. "Daddy," she murmured, "if Mommy's in heaven, do you think she knows?" "Knows what, sweetheart?" "That we're okay." He smiled through his tears. "Yeah, baby. I think she does." Years passed. Emma grew up, her laughter returning brighter than ever. Mark worked 2 jobs to keep her in a good school. He never missed a single parent-teacher meeting, dance recital, or birthday. On her 18th birthday, she handed him an envelope. Inside was a letter, her handwriting still a little messy but full of heart. "Dear Daddy. I know you're not my real dad by blood, but you're the only one who ever made me feel loved. You fixed things that weren't yours to fix. You stayed when you didn't have to. You gave me the childhood I never thought I'd have. People say anyone can be a father, but it takes someone special to be a dad. You were both. Love. Emma." Mark's hands trembled as he folded the letter back. He looked at her, now a young woman, confident, kind, everything Sarah had dreamed she'd be. And in that moment, he realized something profound: love isn't defined by blood, or by papers, or by what the world says makes a family. Love is shown in small, everyday acts, the late nights, the scraped knees, the "I'm proud of you" moments. He wasn't her real dad. But he was her dad. And that was all that mattered. Years later, on Emma's wedding day, she walked down the aisle with her arm in his. The crowd turned, smiling at the pair. She leaned close and whispered, "I love you, Daddy." Mark's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too, kiddo." As he placed her hand into her husband's, he felt something inside him ache, but not from loss. From pride. From gratitude. From the joy of knowing that somewhere, Sarah was watching, smiling. When the ceremony ended, Emma surprised everyone by stepping up to the microphone. "I want to dedicate this day," she said, her voice trembling, "to the man who raised me. He wasn't my real dad by blood, but he gave me the childhood I deserved, and a life filled with love." The crowd erupted in applause. Mark wiped his eyes, trying to hold it together.